Yes, we are recording. Welcome everybody to our lunch lecture series for Reardon Mansion State Historic Park. It's a treat to have Roger Naylor here with us today. Usually we do these things in person, but that's not possible right now. But we're experimenting with our first virtual lunchtime lecture. So a little bit about the Arizona Historical Society. Our mission is connecting people through the power of Arizona's history. And we were established back in 1864. And the Arizona Historical Society runs Reardon Mansion. It's a great partnership between Arizona State Parks and Trails and the Arizona Historical Society. We have 7 museums across the state. Pioneer Museum, of course, is our local partner. And right now the buildings are closed, but the grounds are open. And you can go and visit those grounds Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 5. And we do have some of the smaller outbuildings open so you can peek in those. And Reardon Mansion, right now, we are completely closed. We are gated and the grounds are closed as well. We do not have reopening dates for either of those museums, let alone the rest of our museums. All the museums are currently closed. But we have lots of virtual events coming up, and you can visit the Arizona Historical Society website to sign up for all of these upcoming lectures. Tomorrow, Whistling Dixie in Arizona, a conversation about history, memory, and myth. We've got the Women's Anniversary of Women's Suffrage Movement is coming up, and we've got quite a few events coming up for that. You can see those. And then up here in Flagstaff, we've got some September events already booked. The 5 F's of Flagstaff with Jill Huff. And then we have the Colorado River Days coming up with 2 lectures that will be hosted through our Arizona Historical Society Zoom account for Reardon Mansion. Going with the flow and the ecology of the Colorado River. So exciting lectures coming up there. Think about becoming a member. We do have some great membership opportunities, including the most important, the Journal of Arizona History. The membership includes that quarterly journal. So if you want to check that out, you can get information on our arizonahistoricalsociety.org website. And you can also go on there and sign up for the newsletter so that you can find out what's happening every month. And that is all I have for all of you. For me, I'm going to stop my share. I'm super excited to introduce Roger Naylor today. And he is going to take over sharing his screen. I am going to check on the chat and post your questions in the chat, but a few things that I did post in there, not sure if they were showing up for everybody, but use the chat for your questions and at the end, Roger's going to answer your questions there. Admitting more people in that waiting room. Good idea to help you out is to set your viewing to speaker view, and that will let you just see the person that is speaking. And if you are still seeing a bunch of black boxes, you can hide, click on the ellipses, and you can hide non-video participants. For those that are using your camera, feel free to turn that off, and that way you're not distracting from Roger's presentation. Please keep yourself muted through the presentation. And when we get to the question and answer section, when Roger's done sharing his screen, you are welcome to unmute and ask questions directly, but we'll start with those questions that are in the chat boxes. And I'm so excited to have you all here today, and I'm going to hand it over to Roger. So go ahead, Roger. I'm going to mute myself and you share yours, and I will going to hide myself, and it is all you.
Okay, let me try to, do I do the desktop first? Does that work? Can you see me there? I hope. Well, hi, my name is Roger Naylor. I hope a few folks are out there and that you're able to actually see me and hear me as well. We're going to be talking today about my A recent book of mine, Arizona State Parks, A Guide to Amazing Places in the Grand Canyon State. And I'm going to start off by reading just a little bit of the introduction, and then we'll click on to the slideshow right after that. So this is from the introduction of Arizona State Parks. Coyote paid me no mind. He was just going about coyote business when he crossed the trail 50 yards ahead, giving me a sideways glance and tongue wag, which is canine for what up. I watched as he loped across a meadow sprinkled with Blackfoot daisies. The clumps of white flowers were scattered about like discarded wedding bouquets. Maybe a herd of runaway brides had stampeded past. The low slant of morning sun bathed the landscape in a creamy, dreamy light. A faint fragrance danced in on the breeze, the haunting perfume of moisture-kissed creosote. Somewhere, rain was falling. Dark bruised clouds shoved each other around above the red cliffs of Sedona, 15 miles across the valley. Hopefully the storm would move this way. Until then, I enjoyed my sunshine and solitude. I was alone in a place quiet enough to hear the crunch of coyote paws as my new amigo trotted toward distant hills. It was a typical day in small-town Arizona. Some folks head for treadmills at the gym or a track at a local school, but I prefer to take my walks into the outback, courtesy of Arizona State Parks and Trails. Dead Horse Ranch State Park sits along the banks of the Verde River, minutes from my house, and just that quickly I escape. Dead Horse Ranch is a place where I experience broad scenic vistas, animal encounters, wildflower sightings, a sky full of drama, river, forest, and mountain, all in the span of a simple morning hike. Arizona is best known for national park. This is the Grand Canyon State, but as amazing as that is, we are defined by the hidden treasures of Arizona State Parks and Trails. The entire story of Arizona can be told through the 35 state parks and natural areas. The staggering diversity of the landscape is revealed. Classic Sonoran desert, high grasslands, craggy canyons, mountain forests, fragile riparian corridors, and a playground of lakes and rivers. Some of Arizona's best spring wildflower displays take place in the parks. The Pristine underground cavern, voted best cave in the nation, the world's largest travertine natural bridge, and one of the Southwest's most legendary swimming holes are all state parks. The history of Arizona unfolds across state parks. There are parks that preserve the prehistoric dwellings of native people, a Spanish colonial era presidio, an Indian Wars era fort, a Civil War battlefield, a Wild West courthouse, and a notorious hoosgow. The foundation of Arizona's early economy, mining, ranching, and timber are all represented by the parks. We are an arid state, yet the parks include an abundance of water, such as high mountain lakes and desert fishing and swimming holes. Most intriguing of all, Arizona's enticing west coast, defined by the mighty Colorado River, is packed with parks along its most scenic stretches. In 2017, I visited every Arizona state park. It seemed like a good idea. The parks were turning 60, I was turning 60. It felt like kismet. It ended up being a very good year, at least for the parks. I think they're aging better than me. The parks experienced all-time highs in attendance and revenue, and to cap the year off in fairy tale fashion, they were acknowledged as the very best in the nation at what they do. In September 2017, the Arizona State Parks and Trails received the Gold Medal Award from the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration. Winning the gold medal simply validated what Arizona residents have known for years. It is a park system without peer. State parks exhibit a treasure trove of natural and cultural wonders. They deliver wild country almost right to our doorsteps. They are bite-sized, family-friendly adventures. Imagine this scenario. Take a year and visit every single award-winning state park in Arizona. Explore the far corners of this astonishing, astounding state. Reconnect to the small towns, the rugged scenery, and the curving two-lane roads. Hike, fish, swim, camp, stargaze, and learn. Do all the things you yearn to do, but so rarely find the time. Play hard, live deliberately, get healthy, breathe. Now that's a gold medal year by anyone's standards. I know it was for me. So that's my challenge to you. Get out and visit all these parks. I know you can't right this minute, but I want you to hold on to that notion, because what a great way to explore new corners of Arizona once we are able to ramble around free and easy again. if we've learned anything from this pandemic, it's just how quickly the world can change. We can't afford to waste opportunities. So get out whenever you can. And these are our parks. People travel from all over the world to visit Grand Canyon, Monument Valley, some of our other high value destinations, but not so many know about Fool's Hollow Lake, Reardon Mansion, Cattail Cove, Yuma Prison. That's our turf. State parks are there for us. They're less crowded, they're less expensive, and the money you do spend will be supporting a local community. And that's a big win-win, especially in these days. So let's look at a few of these parks if I can figure out how to, let's see, how do I pull up? Uh-oh, I'm not sure how to go back since I did the desktop. Let me do the stop share and then I will try this to go to the, okay, there we go. I hope you're seeing this. Perfect, okay. This is my book, Arizona State Parks, that we're talking about. That's the Lost Dutchman State Park right there on the cover with the brittle bush blooming down at the base. So, and of course, here is my sanctuary. This is my little spot. Dead Horse Ranch is a beautiful getaway, and even more importantly, it belongs to me, literally. I've been hiking here for over 25 years. I've claimed squatters' rights. I graciously allow the state parks to run it and let other people in, but it is officially my backyard. This has always been an incredibly special place to me, but even more so this year, because it doesn't feel as much like lockdown when I can go here every day. So I'm just so grateful. There are over 20 miles of trails throughout the park, so I have a lot of options. I can go hiking up into the hills. It's also a very popular park with mountain bikers. There are a lot of long-range trails that not only travel through the park, but exit it to connect with national forest land. So you can do some massive loops. You can go hike all the way or ride all the way from Cottonwood to Sedona, if you'd like, on the trails here. Or you can go hiking down by the Verde River, one of only two wild and scenic rivers in Arizona. And this is a truly special place. This is the heart and soul of the Verde Valley. I always say that in Arizona, air conditioning keeps us sane, but it's the water and shade that sets us free. So it's so nice to be down here and spend a few peaceful days. And of course, I've got 3 lagoons that I can do laps around. And this is where I am a lot in the summertime, because when it's a little hot, I enjoy the shade. I like to have a little bit of a shady hike. That's Mingus Mountain there in the background. Of course, it's because I hike around the lagoons in the summer that I have created a mortal enemy. I actually have a nemesis now because he likes to be at the lagoons at the same time. That's him right there, the great blue heron, who likes to hunt the lagoon. So I come walking around the pathways, and even though I try to give him a wide berth and remind him that I have no plans to tackle him or bother him in any way, he still feels the need to fly out over the water. And herons have this way of voicing their displeasure, this sort of croaking squawk that lets you know it's a lot of attitude. They let you know they're unhappy. And I think part of that is just a chore for them to take off. Little birds can go flitting off with no problem, but herons are big, lanky, tall things. They're all beak and neck and legs. They have to unfold everything and then get flapping on these slow-moving pterodactyl wings. And what he does is he flies out over the water and then usually circles back and lands exactly in the path just a little further along the trail. So 5 seconds later, here I come again, and we repeat this process. Sometimes we do this 3-4 times a day till finally he gets fed up and flies off to the river or flies out to the island, or sometimes he just perches on a submerged log there in the water and glares at me. I imagine with this foghorn leghorn voice going, "Well, of course you know, sir, this means war." My fear is one morning I'm going to wake up in my and pull open the blinds to my bedroom. There are going to be dozens of herons sitting out on my porch, just peering in at me with these little beady eyes, like something out of a Hitchcock movie, except worse, because imagine all the heron crap I'm going to have to hose up. So I tell you this in case something ever happens to me, if I don't come back from a hike and you find me floating face down in the lagoon with peck marks on my neck and head, it was no accident. Arrest the damn heron. But just to prove that I don't antagonize every bird I encounter, here's my good friend, the bald eagle. He is one of a pair of bald eagles that I see quite often at Dead Horse Ranch. In fact, I saw the two of them just circling above the lagoon just about a week or so ago. It turns out they have a nest just downriver from Dead Horse Ranch State Park, and I've done a little calculation because I also live downriver from Dead Horse Ranch State Park. So this is my neighbor, essentially. He lives about, there's a nest of bald eagles within a mile and a half of my house. And that's pretty nice. That's one of the cool things about living in Arizona, is you never know who your neighbors might be. Here's one of my neighboring parks, Jerome State Historic Park, also known locally as the Douglas Mansion. This was built by Jimmy Rawhide Douglas back in the day when copper was flowing like water from a hole in the ground there. And Jimmy Douglas was the owner of the Little Daisy mine, which produced $125 million worth of ore back at turn of the century prices, and it was still not the richest mine in Jerome. So that's why Jerome was known as the billion-dollar copper camp. It was just the fabulous wealth was being pulled out of the ground from there. But this 8,700 square foot mansion was originally built as a home. Now it's a beautiful museum. Filled with exhibits, displays, artifacts, a diorama of the 88 miles of tunnels that still exist beneath your feet there in Jerome. They show a video throughout the day. So it's a great look back at what life was like back in the day. You can tour the grounds as well, and there's mining equipment spread around there and a few surprises. Tucked away in one of the carports is a Surrey with a little fringe on top, and not just any Surrey, but the Surrey with fringe on top, the actual one that was used in the filming of the movie Oklahoma, which was not shot in Oklahoma. It was actually shot in southern Arizona near another state park, near Patagonia Lake, because they couldn't find enough wide open spaces in Oklahoma. And of course, we have wide open spaces to spare in Arizona. So here's one of my favorite pieces, or the most intriguing pieces of mining equipment, I think. This is called the Honey Wagon. But as you can probably guess, that ain't honey that it's hauling. That's the two-seat commode that was wheeled through the mines. Sometimes when my job feels a little stressful, I often think back to the operator of the Honey Wagon back then, because any kind of hard rock mining had to be pretty brutal work in those days, and there had to be one guy that was taking this through the mine and letting the miners do their business, and that was his job throughout the day. And at the end of the shift, he would hand it over to the next guy, because mines operated 24 hours a day back then. So our man would go topside and maybe have a couple of whiskeys in one of Jerome's saloons and stagger home to his boarding house or little miner's shack and lay there at night wondering how his life had taken such a turn, and maybe even saying a little prayer, please God, let that jerk on the other shift empty the Honey Wagon instead of leaving it for me to do first thing in the morning. Suddenly my job seems much less stressful. So it's all just a matter of perspective. Here's one of my absolute favorite facets of Arizona State Parks, is that they are known for some of the most brilliant wildflower displays in the state. There are primarily 3 parks uh, that really are wonderful to see in the springtime, that really show off some great wildflowers. This is one of them. This is Picacho Peak, about 40 miles north of Tucson. This is also a historic park because this is the site of the westernmost battle of the Civil War. It's fought right here on the flanks of this mountain. So they've got a nice little interpretive trail there with information about the events leading up to the battle and the battle itself. And they've got a series of trails throughout the park, including one to the very top of the mountain there, which is probably the hardest hike in the state park system. The last stretch of trail, you're actually pulling yourself up via an iron cable to reach the top. I did it. I did that trail as a younger man. I have not felt the need to go back and do it now that I'm a geezer. Very happy with my memories. Fortunately, if you're just there for the wildflowers and the scenery, that's not required. The abundance of wildflowers tend to be down on the lower slopes. In fact, most of them are visible right from the roadside. So this is a great park for people with mobility issues that can't get out and do a lot of hiking. You can see just wonderful displays right from the road or from a roadside picnic table. But I always love hiking down here. I took this photo at the end of last February 2019. I think the last day of February. We had a spectacular wildflower season last year, and in this past spring as well. It was just shaping up to be one when I kind of got cut short, at least for me personally, but it was still beautiful. This is more of Picacho Peak, but again, these are taken almost literally right from the shoulder of the road, so you can get out and really enjoy the day. Here's another park of the three big ones. This is the second. This is Catalina State Park on the north slope of Tucson. That's the Catalina Mountains rising above. And I actually took this photo this past March. In fact, this was I guess the last carefree day I've had in 2020. I was just down here hiking and reveling in this incredible bounty of wildflowers. And the next day I gave a talk at the Sierra Vista Library. And the day after that, I came driving back to the Verde Valley with a global pandemic nipping at my heels. It was that crazy week in March when all of a sudden everything just seemed to explode stuff. So I really cherish the memory of this day. It's a gorgeous park because you're hiking down on low desert and gazing up at sometimes snow-capped peaks. So it's really very much the Arizona experience. There can be people skiing up above you there on Mount Lemmon while you're hiking down here. This means so much to me. This is my favorite time of year. This is my favorite experience, to get out and walk among the desert in bloom. I absolutely love this. I'm from Ohio originally, and even though I haven't lived there for decades, I'm still haunted by the memories of those winters, the cold and the snow, the gray and the rain. And so any day I can spend in January, February, March in shorts and t-shirt, reveling in the fields of little satin poppies is I consider a personal victory. So if you've not seen the desert in bloom, if you haven't made the journey down to experience that, do yourself a favor. The next time you hear that we've had a wet winter, a wet spring, or have any kind of bloom, go. It's really kind of a miracle to be part of. All of Arizona state parks are right in town. They're right in a town, or they're right on the edge of town, just on the outskirts. But they're all very connected to a community, with this one exception. This is Alamo Lake, 30 miles down a dead-end road, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, this big lanky piece of water stretched along the base of these desert mountains. But that remoteness is very much part of its charm. This is not a place you go for an afternoon. This is a place you go to spend a couple of days, couple of nights. If you're a fisherman, you're already familiar with Alamo Lake because it's known as one of the best bass fishing spots in the Southwest. They often film tournaments here. But it's also just an incredibly restful, quiet place. They've got about 250 campsites, and also then they've got several camping cabins, and that's what I like. I used to camp a lot when I was younger, but again, now that I'm an old man, I like my comfort. I enjoy the cabins, so it's very restful there. In fact, I had one of the best nights sleep of my life as an adult in one of the cabins there at Alamo Lake. There's no Wi-Fi, so I just took books and read, and then I would stop and go out and gaze up at an incredible night sky, just inky black with a canopy of glittering stars overhead. The Milky Way was a river of frosted light. It was just wonderful. And not the quietest place, even though it was very, very remote. I heard burros braying across the desert and coyotes yipping as the moon was rising and owls hooting in the darkness. So it was a bustling place, but that was a very much a wonderful, restful night. And as I say in the book, I list all the information as far as, how many campsites, how many cabins, what kind of campsites, fishing, boating, restrictions, describe the trails, describe the museum hours, everything that's applicable. So you've got all the information for each park before you go visit. Here's another one of my neighboring parks. This is Fort Berdy. And this is actually the least visited of all the Arizona state parks, which is just a tragedy to me because it's such a great little park and so easily accessible and so informative. It's right there in the heart of Camp Verde. It's just 2 or 3 miles off I-17, and you can see the entire park in about an hour, hour and a half. So it's a really quick history lesson. There are 4 original buildings dating back to the early 1870s, stretched here along the parade ground. Each one has been turned into a museum filled with original furnishings, clothing, equipment, and so forth. So it really is a great time capsule experience, a look back at what life was like on the frontier. And again, you can do it very quickly. So next time you're in the area passing by, say, hey, let's have a nice little history lesson here. Treat yourself to a visit to Fort Berdy. This is the third of the big wildflower parks. You saw it also on the cover of my book during the spring. This is a summer shot here of Lost Dutchman State Park, lapping up against the hard, savage wall of the Superstition Mountains there. A lot of great hiking trails here. And that's one of the things that the state park is I always recommend for. If you're a hiker, maybe not an experienced hiker, but you want to learn more of it, state parks are great for that because not only do you have all the trail information in my book, which of course you will be purchasing, but you also, every time you go to a park, they'll give you a handy trail map with even more detail and pictures and maps and so forth. And all the trails are very well maintained. They're well signed. So you're kind of hiking in a small contained area, and you can feel a little more comfortable. And it's a good way to learn more about hiking, about what you enjoy and get out and see. But then at the same time, you can expand. The trails here stay within the park, but they also connect to other trails outside in the national forest if you want to continue. One of those trails heads up into the Superstitions, climbs up in the mountain. This is the Siphon Draw Trail. And this is such a great trail. It's featured in another one of my books, Boots and Burgers in Arizona Handbook for Hungry Hikers. But I always love this a trail. It climbs up into the mountains and takes you into a high-walled basin where you usually find a little pool of water. And has spectacular views back across the valley. There's also campgrounds here and more of the cabins and stuff. So this is a great little desert getaway if you just want to come decide you need a little break from winter snows or coldness or gray. You drive down the desert, you grab a cabin for a couple of nights and revel in some 75 degrees in the middle of January. It's one of the wonderful things about Arizona. If you don't like the season you're having, there's another one waiting for you just up the road. So here's a park that I think everyone should visit. This is the Granite Mountain Hot Shots Memorial Park, of course. It's about 2 miles south of Yarnell, and it's free. There's no admission. The parking lot is just a quick pull out from the interstate. So, and this is right there in the parking lot. So they have a statue. They've got some nice little memorial there. They've got the photos and information. So even if you don't want to hike or don't have time to hike, or you can still stop and pay your respects. This is it'll break your heart a little. I won't lie to you, especially when you start out this, if you can tell, there's a photo of here. This is the Granite Mountain Hot Shots, all scattered. They were all posing in front of this big tree. In fact, this is the world's largest alligator juniper tree. And in late June of 2013, they were fighting a fire on the outskirts of Prescott. And they saved not only all the structures and put the fire out, but they also managed to save this incredible specimen of a tree. And they take a photo of it. They're all kind of looking happy, and they're covered in grime and soot, and obviously just finished with their work. And then you see how young they are, and it just stabs you right in the heart. But if you are able to hike, there's a trail that leaves right from the parking lot and heads up the mountain. And along the way, there are 19 plaques set in boulders. You can see one of them there. It has a photo and tells the story of one of the hot shots. And there are benches set along the pathway as well. And the first bench shows up about a quarter of a mile in. So if you can only hike a little ways, if you want to go a quarter of a mile, you've still gotten to read a couple of plaques, and you've gotten to visit this place in the Weaver Mountains here and see what, again, to reflect and pay your respects a little bit. If you're able to continue, it's a steep hike. It climbs 1,200 feet up switchbacks, and you go up 200 steps to the top of the mountain, and then it kind of levels out across a ridge line. There's not much shade, so you just need to carry water, be prepared. It's a good reminder of the kind of terrain that these guys had to work in, and while carrying 50-pound packs on their back. The trail ends at 2.85 miles at a shaded observation deck, where also there's a tribute wall, and again, some good informational signage about hot shots in general, what they do, the kind of job they do, and then also some specific information about the Yarnell fire and that fateful day. And here we are. This is out on the ridgeline just before reaching the observation deck, gazing back towards the town of Yarnell. And this is what really hit me. This is what got me pretty hard, because I knew this terrain. I know this area, and I knew how rugged it is. And I just had this image that somehow they were trapped in an isolated spot or away from everything and out in the middle of nowhere. And that's not really the case. If you notice the small circle down kind of in the center of the photo there, that's the fatality site. And then you look a little beyond that to that cleared area. That's the ranch. That was their safe zone. That's where they were heading, and you see how close it is, how close they got to safety, just a few hundred yards, and it's, you know, just, again, just heart-wrenching. If you'd like to continue, you can turn back from the observation deck if you'd like, but if you would like to continue, there's another trail. It's called the Journey Trail, and it follows the final footsteps that they took on that day. It takes you 3/4 of a mile down into the shallow canyon and leads you to the fatality site. And my hat's off to Arizona State Parks. They did a wonderful job of just keeping this very simple, very understated. It's 19 gabions, these large rock-filled mesh cages that are linked by strong chain forming the circle. And within the circle are the 19 crosses, each one bearing a name of one of the men where they were found, and of course, each with the date, June 30th, 2013. It's a very surprisingly small circle. Nobody broke and ran. They were all still working together as a team right until the end. So you can stay here as long as you like and pay your respects however you see fit. But here's what you do on the hike out. You stop and savor the views because they're spectacular. You look for wildflowers. You listen for bird song. You say hello to the lizards you meet on the trail. You wave at the butterflies. You run your hands over the rough skin of the boulders along the trail. You do everything you can to celebrate the beauty of this place and to hold on to the details of this day. Because I think that's what those guys would have wanted. Here's another trail that I think, or another park that I think everybody should visit. And of course, when I'm elected governor of Arizona, it will be mandated. One of the first laws I will enact will be that every Arizona resident will be required to visit Grand Canyon, and also every Arizona resident will be required to visit Karchner Caverns. Because not only is it an amazing place, a miraculous place, but it's such a great story. It's such a heartwarming, inspiring story. This place was discovered back in the 70s by two young cavers, Randy Tufts and Gary Tinnen. They were fooling around down the Whetstone Mountains because they had found a couple of sinkholes, very small, shallow sinkholes, but sometimes sinkholes can mean that there's a cave beneath. So they were at one of the sinkholes, and they noticed a little gush of warm air coming from a small hole about the size of a grapefruit. So they started chipping away at the hole, made it big enough, about the size of a volleyball, and slithered through the mud and discovered this lost world. They discovered Atlantis. They discovered this subterranean architecture underground, this pristine, living, breathing cave that nobody had ever seen before. There was no evidence of human contact. And instead of coming out and shouting it to the world and becoming pretty famous, becoming the most famous caver, certainly of a generation, they kept it quiet. They kept their mouth shut. It was a secret. For years, they kept it quiet. They didn't even tell their other caver friends because they knew this is such a fragile environment that it would be destroyed by outside contact, even by well-meaning people. It wouldn't last. So they kept it a secret for years. They researched the family that owned the property, the Karchners, and they learned everything they could about them, and finally approached them to let them know the wonders that were tucked away underground on their property. And the Karchners agreed that yes, this had to be kept secret and until it could be protected. So they got the state parks people involved, and that sort of then it meant some clandestine tactics with late night drives, driving around blindfolding them, driving them around in circles, leading them up into the hills, having them crawl on their belly through the mud into the cave, and so they wouldn't know where they were though. But and as soon as they saw it, it was the same reaction. We have to protect this. We have to do everything we can to protect this. So they kind of raised money on the sly and started construction. So it took 14 years from the discovery until they started working on the park and stuff. And now it's still here. It's still thriving because everybody who got involved wanted to do the right thing. How often do you hear that story? That's just so unheard of these days. It just inspires me and stuff. But if you've never been, it's an amazing place. You have to go. It's estimated that it takes 750 years for 1 inch to be added to any of the formations, the stalactites, the stalagmites, the soda straws, any of those, just 1 inch from the little drips of water that the residue they leave. And some of these are 20, 30 feet tall. And so how ancient is this process? And it's still able to go on because, again, everybody wanted to protect this. So now when you go, you walk through these big NORAD style airlock doors that keep it's sealed up to protect and preserve the humidity, keep out the outside elements. You go through these, you walk under misters that tamp down all your dust and mites and stuff, and then you walk into this chamber, and it's this soft wall of humidity that just wraps itself around you, and you hear water dripping, the echo of it throughout this massive caverns. I mean, it's like walking into the chambers of a beating heart. It's magical. And the park really did very little inside. They have a pathway with guardrails. It's a handicapped accessible, wheelchair accessible path. How many caves can say that? They offer 2 tours. They're both spectacular. Do them both. And just enjoy. In fact, they do a 3rd tour, which is one of my favorites as well. On Saturday evenings, after the other tours are finished, it's called the Helmet and Headlamp Tour. They turn off all the lights in the cave and give you one of these little miner hats with a little lamp, and you go in, you turn on your lamp, and that's how you see the cave. And that's just really, really cool. So be sure to put this on your list. You should go on your own and not wait until you're ordered to do so by your tyrannical governor, who will be me. Well, here's a place you might recognize. I won't go into my whole Reardon Mansion spiel because you already know how wonderful it is, but it is a place that I talk about, or back when I was still able to go around the state and give presentations and talks, and I always sang the praises of Reardon Mansion and what a cool place it was, and for students of history, students of architecture, and just how fascinating it was that you learn not just about the history of the family, but about the history of Flagstaff as well and stuff. So I certainly look forward to it being reopened again soon. One of the things I do for I write for the Arizona Republic, as many of you probably know, but usually most years I always write the Christmas story, which is, talking about some of the best events to go to, the Polar Express, the North Pole Experience, some of the best parades and light displays and so forth. And I always make a point to include the Victorian display at the Reardon Mansion. And I really hope that by the time December rolls around that they'll be open and able to have that, and I'll get to write about it again. So look forward to that. Here's another great historic park, Tombstone Courthouse. If you're a Western buff like me, Tombstone is an essential stop. This is hallowed ground, not just because of a single gunfight, but because of the legendary characters that walked these streets and shot their way into the history books. There's so much great information here. So this is a great research place and good exhibits that tell you what life was like during those times, and certainly a very detailed exhibit on the famous gunfight itself. Tombstone has gotten a little more commercialized than I would have liked, but there's still these really a few historic sites that are must-sees. That includes the Boot Hill and the Birdcage Theater, which is really an incredible stop, and the Tombstone Courthouse. And everybody should go see the gunfight reenactment at the OK Corral at least once. Treat yourself to that. So here's one of the parks that I had not visited before I started writing the book. I thought that I had, but when I got here, I had no recollection of it. So I think I had it mixed up with another lake. This is Lyman Lake. It's north of Springerville, about 12 miles north of Springerville, between Springerville and St. John, at about 6,000 feet out on the high rolling plains there. And I think it gets overlooked quite a bit because, you know, the White Mountains are known for some, you know, just spectacular lakes, just gorgeous lakes with forests all around them and stuff. And maybe since this is kind of outside the forest, it's not as big of a deal, which is unfortunate. This is by far the biggest lake in the area. This is 1,500 acres. It's massive. There are no size restrictions on the boat size. So if you've got an aircraft carrier leaking oil in your driveway, hitch it up, drive it to Lyman Lake. So very popular with power boaters, water skiers, and so forth. But as you'll notice, if you kind of look at it, it's also it's kind of a poor man's Lake Powell. There are all these different channels here. There are no wake zones. So it's really great for kayakers and fishermen looking for quiet little coves and so forth. They've got a roped off swimming beach, got a couple of trails around. So again, just a really great summer getaway. Not only do they have the campsites, but they've got the cabins overlooking the lake as well. So you can just have a really wonderful family experience there. And here's just a stormy monsoon sunset over Lyman Lake. And man, I hope we start seeing some stormy skies before this summer comes to an end. We are just desperately dry in the Verde Valley. Here's another overlooked park quite a bit, I think. This is Oracle State Park. Also north of Tucson. That's the Santa Catalina Mountains that we're gazing at there in the distance. This would probably be, if we were rating the wildflower parks, this would probably be number 4 on the list. It's not, you don't get the massive fields of poppies like you do at the other 3, the Brittle Bush, but you get some really nice displays. I've had some really good flower exhibitions blooming here during the wet years. And a great hiking trail, 15 miles of different trails through some nice boulder fields. It's at about 4,500 feet, so it's oak scrub woodland kind of, and it's also a wildlife refuge. So you see there's a lot of sightings. They also have the wildlife cameras where they regularly capture a mountain lion who comes prowling through. So that's pretty cool. And this little unassuming pathway here is actually the most prominent trail in the state. This is the big one. This is the Big Kahuna. This is the Arizona National Scenic Trail, the 800-mile trail stretching from Utah to Mexico. And it only goes through one state park, and that's Oracle. So to me, it's always a really fun little hiking stop. But there's another side to it too, because this was a ranch that was settled originally by 5 siblings. Well, the first sibling came out with tuberculosis, came to a nearby sanatorium, got his health restored, purchased this property. His another brother came out, and then the other siblings followed. 3 brothers, 2 sisters, the Canale family. Never married, lived in a couple of small cabins for a few years, and then in the 1920s, they built an incredible ranch house, historic ranch house, but one that looks nothing like any ranch house you would expect to find. It looks more like an Italian villa. It covers 4 levels, has 3 spiral staircases. Inside one of them completely of natural stone. It has all these little pocket gardens and patios, and the verandas just tucked away all over the place. It's just beautiful. So if you're a fan of Reared Mansion and that historic architecture and our architectural flourishes and details, then this is really a place you need to stop. The house is open, filled with original furnishings and artwork. It's open anytime the park is open. Then on Saturday and Sunday, the rangers also offer a free guided tour through the house. So it's really intriguing to see. One of the brothers suffered nerve damage in World War I from gas, and as part of his therapy, he took up painting. So he and developed a really intriguing style, and he's got about 30 of these impressionist paintings that are on display in the house as well. So again, that's a lot of people don't know that much about Oracle, but it's a sweet little town just off of State Route 77. I think not too far from Biosphere 2. And there's also one of the longest zip lines in the state here. So what I do also with in the book is I include all these nearby attractions. So not, because if you come to visit me in Cottonwood and you're going to spend a couple of nights in Dead Horse Ranch State Park, well, I want you to know about all the other stuff that's around. So that's why I tell you about the Verde Canyon Railroad and the Verde Valley Wine Trail and the Clemenceau Museum and Tuzigo National Monument. All that's within just a couple of miles of Dead Horse Ranch State Park. So I want you to not only visit the park, but I want you to connect to the community, because again, these parks and communities are very much tied together and stuff. And I'll digress for just a second and give myself just a little plug. I mentioned the Verde Canyon Railroad. So if you've never been, now's a great time to go, because from now on, if you go, I'll actually be joining you on the ride, or at least my melodic voice will. I'm now the official narrator of the Verde Canyon Railroad. So that's me that you'll be hearing, telling you the sights that you're seeing and describing the geology and history of the area and spinning a few tales. So the train ride just got even better than it was, which is hard to believe, or maybe just weirder, who knows. Here's one of my favorite historic parks. This is Yuma Prison. And of course, if you were again, a Western fan like me, a Western buff, this was the most feared federal penitentiary of that time. For the 33 years it was open, this was where you did not want to go. This was also voted the most haunted place in America just last year. 111 prisoners died within these walls. 104 of them still sleep in cold graves just outside the walls in the prison cemetery. So you get to visit the cell blocks. You get to go into the dark cell, which is kind of famous, known as the snake den, because legend had it that guards used to drop snakes through the little blowhole up top, which was the only opening, and on the prisoners. But there's no documentation that ever happened, but still probably not a bad rumor for the guards to keep alive through the prison population. They've got wonderful exhibits, artifacts, and so forth. And again, just they kept really detailed records here. So the stories they tell are really intriguing. I always like any prison that I'm not in. It validates my choices somehow. And I really love visiting Yuma, which I talk about quite a bit in the book, because they've done remarkable jobs transforming their riverfront as well. And of course, once you're in Yuma, you're on Arizona's west coast. So if you head north and start up traveling up the Colorado River, you're treated to 4 beautiful parks that are perched on the western edge of Arizona. This is the first one you'll come to, a little north of Parker. This is Buckskin Mountain. So a beautiful combination of sparkling water, sandy beaches, and some great desert trails. There are a few really nice little trails through the gaunt desert hills here. Just a mile and a half away is an even more intimate park. This is River Island. Only 38 campsites, 37 campsites, I think. 8 of them for tent only. It's just in a nice little cove of the river, and you're camping practically right on the beach. And there's only one hiking trail called the Wedge Hill Trail. It's only a half mile. It takes you up into the hills and offers you beautiful views up and down the river here. Then you get to my favorite. This is Cattail Cove, clean to the south edge of Lake Havasu. And I think this is sort of the ideal for me, because it's has these white sandy beaches, palm trees, and then a really terrific system of desert trails. Some of them, there's one that takes you through like a little mini slot canyon. Others takes you over rough hills and around. And all the while, every now and then you'll pop up over this hill and you'll just have this incredible view of this sparkling blue lake. And it's just like a mirage, but it's just really wonderful. I think I took this photo in mid-November, so the people lounging on the beach. This is one of my favorite times to visit these parks too. This has become one of my favorite things to do in the fall and October and November, because the summer boaters have gone home and it's too early for the snowbirds. So the parks are pretty much deserted. You just have them all to yourself. And it doesn't get really cold in the Verde Valley or anything, but still, I like long days and heat, and I don't like the winter at all, even if it's just chilliness. So I really like to come here, and it's usually still about 80 degrees in November, and it's just like I can lay on the beach and I can swim and I can go hiking. So here it is, almost Thanksgiving, and I still have a nice little few days of summer before that. So that's what I like about Arizona. Again, we always keep a little extra summer lying around if you know where to look. And then the final park, West Coast Park, is Lake Havasu, right there in Lake Havasu City, just a couple of miles from the famous London Bridge. And this is the most west coast of all the parks. It's just a long white sand beach, Windsor Beach, with swaying palm trees and seagulls with their wings flashing white in the sun. It's very much, you're standing on the edge of the water, the waves lapping in, and you have to remind yourself, I'm still in Arizona. So this is mostly about the water and the boats. There's only one trail that kind of goes through the park, but it's they've got like 4 boat ramps. They've got campgrounds, cabins, and so forth. So this is very much where you come to experience the water, and you get some great sunsets because you get the best of the desert sunsets. Then also you have the water as reflector. So I've seen some buttes here. And then we'll come to the last park that I'll be talking about. This is, of course, I think recognizable to just about everybody. This is Slide Rock State Park, just south of Flagstaff, down in the Oak Creek Canyon. A popular summer getaway, crazy popular in the summer. Now, I'm enough of a geezer, I'm old enough to remember when it was not yet a park. It was just a swimming hole, and you just pulled your vehicle off wherever you could find a spot along the shoulder, and you scrambled down the hill, and you came down in your cutoffs and went through the slide a few times. But I'm glad it's a state park now, because it would just be loved to death. It really needs to be protected. But it's one of those places, I think, that you've got to, most of us probably have a summer memory or two of it, but it's been ages since I've been back in the summer. And I started thinking about that. And then I started changing when I was writing the book, and I started visiting more and more. And what I discovered is, if you don't go in the summer, this is a spectacular park. You go in the winter when the cliffs are mantled in snow and it's hushed and still, and it's just so peaceful. Or if you go in the spring when the orchards are just starting to bloom, and again, it's so quiet. And you go in the fall when you can buy bags of fresh picked apples and fresh jugs of fresh cider. If you go anytime when it's too chilly to swim, you're just surrounded by this incredible beauty, these red rock cliffs and this musical stream, and you can hike up the stream and find this perfect little picnic spot, and it's just gorgeous. So I would never call Slide Rock overlooked, but I think it does get overlooked by people who just go, oh no, it's going to be too crowded, because we only think of it in the terms of the summer. So wait until the end of the summer and then make a trip down there in the fall, make a trip down there in the winter, spring, and you'll just fall in love. It's just a really great little park. Just a beautiful little spot. So that's it for the parks that I'll show you. Of course, if you'd like to buy my book, and of course you want to buy my book now, just because I'm not there to stare at you with big guilty eyes and force you to buy it, you still want to do that, you can order it from my website, rogernaylor.com. You can buy all my books there, and also, and every book that is purchased on my website, I sign before it goes out, so you'll get a signed copy, and you'll also receive a free gift. You'll receive a copy of the Grand Canyon National Park Centennial magazine. I was very honored when the National Park was turning 100, and they asked me to write their big 56-page glossy magazine that I think that still may be available at the park. I'm not sure, but if not, I am the only one who, where as long as my supply lasts, I include it as a free gift to any book that you purchase. And also, you can be sure to, while you're on my website, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're not following me on Facebook and Twitter, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you, because it's all Arizona all the time. There's no politics, no religion, no cat videos even. It's just celebrating the beauty of Arizona. And one last thing I'll mention, of course, also my latest book is a book of fiction, Crazy for the Heat, Arizona Tales of Ghost, Gumshoes, and Bigfoot. It's 9 short stories, Arizona-based short stories, humorous tales that I think will make you smile, make you laugh. And that one is also available on my website. And I think that is it for my slideshow. Let me see if I can, let's see, I'll stop share. There we go. And I think it's
Thank you
back to
so much, Roger. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In the
My
chat,
pleasure.
you're getting quite a few thank yous and great presentation. I want to just say, so poetic. We could listen to you all day. I am going to stop the recording so that we can keep it at that hour mark for people that watch it later. And so